Class 2 ewe lambs and doe kids should be checking in.
Turn it off. Turn it off.
Test 1 2, test 1 2. We will need parents for all first and second place does today to come for hair pulling. Tag 263173. We need you to come check in on the doe side. I want to introduce our judges today. On our Junior Weather Dam Show side, we have Charlie Hild. Charlie grew up on a diversified family farming operation in central Iowa. He graduated from Iowa State University with an animal science degree and currently works for United Animal Health as a strategic account manager. He and his wife Monica have two kids, Garth and Basil. They, along with his brother Tanner and parents Mark and Nancy, own and operate Hild Brothers Show Stock, which consists of approximately 350 ewes, specializing in producing show sheep, seed stock, and marketing semen on their ram battery. Folks, let's give Charlie Hild a big round of applause. And on our doe side, we have Dr. Peyton Dahmer. Dr. Dahmer grew up with a diversified livestock background in Nevada, Missouri, and exhibited all species. He attended Butler Community College and Kansas State University, where he was part of multiple national championship judging teams and named an All-American at both institutions. He completed his BS in animal science at Kansas State in 2019, then stayed on for his master's and coached a reserve national champion and national champion livestock judging team as the assistant coach. Recently, Peyton finished his PhD in nutrition and joined the Department of Animal Science and Industry faculty, where he teaches courses in livestock selection, nutrition, and management, and coaches the livestock judging team. Additionally, Peyton oversees the KSU Sheep and Goat Center, where they conduct small ruminant research and raise NSIP-enrolled polypa sheep, club lambs, and show goats. Folks, let's give Dr. Dahmer a big round of applause. We will not hold classes for you. If you do need a substitute exhibitor form, you can pick one of those up at the show office, fill it out, and you can bring it to the check-in area. Again, all Class 2 ewe lambs and doe kids should be checked in if they have not done so.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's certainly a pleasure, certainly an exciting day to be here in Austin and work through the Doe Show. I'm really, really excited, not only because I know I'm going to get to see some first-class livestock, but more importantly, I'm going to get to work with some awesome young people. And so really looking forward to the day. We've got great weather, and we've got a great group to get us started with. And as we roll into this first class, a little bit like I expected, we get just a little bit of variety in terms of types and kinds and shapes and sizes, but I think the one consistent thing is there's a lot of quality throughout this lineup, and I think our top five, even though all five of them aren't cut from the exact same mold, I think they're all very, very good. And I guess to me, the one I landed on, I thought from the minute she came in the gate, that one really struck me, and I think she continued that impression as we kept them out here, because to me, she blends some of the things I like in 2 through 5 into what I think is still the most fault-free package. That doe, in my opinion, in terms of just the base of her skeleton, is opened up the way she's supposed to be. I love her rib cage. To me, that one is round and bold and true in terms of her body shape, and yet still tucks up really nicely where her forerib sits into her skeleton here from the side. To me, the big difference is, and why she gets to beat number 2, is just from a structural standpoint. Although she's not perfectly just stout in terms of her feature, I think the build and travel of her hip and her rear leg, both from the side and as I study that pair going away from me, is just a nickel better. I think that doe parks and reads just a little bit neater at the front part of her body. Like I mentioned there, in a perfect world, we would stouten her feature just a little bit relative to her body mass up high, but I think that one skeletally is very, very good, and to me, does it with plenty of power out here. Still looks like a lady from the side. Nice one to get us started. The young lady's doe here in second. She does an excellent job getting that one parked and presented, and she probably is the best in this entire lineup just right out of her blade. To me, that one connects so smoothly as you lay your hands on her. I love the freshness of that doe, just not only from a touch standpoint, condition is excellent on that one. To me, she's so perfectly level in her spine and probably hooks up just a little bit neater, even at times, than does our class winner. I guess the difference is, for me, a really rear leg assembly. I read that doe to be just a little frailer in terms of her rear foot and weaker on her rear pastern, and I think a product of that, she wants to get just a little straighter in the set of her hock. As I study that doe going away from me, I'd like to square her in her hock placement as well, but a really good ribbed, good touch, and fresh condition doe that still parks with some quality from the side. The most interesting one of this lineup for me, young lady, is the one here in third. You do a phenomenal job getting that one presented, and that doe, to me, from just a skeletal quality standpoint, is immensely good. She runs uphill. The top of her shoulder blade sits exponentially higher than her tail does, and that one, to me, in terms of just blade placement, sternum placement, is immensely high quality up front. The question I ask myself is, as I get underneath this lineup, is there just truly enough in terms of her chest, the turn of her rib, all the way back to her pin set and right there through her leg? To me, that one just doesn't have quite enough in terms of skeletal dimension to slide her up. But I think quality is excellent there from the side. The red doe that's going to come in fourth, powerful, muscular, round-bodied, definitely has that advantage in this lineup. Some structure, some balance things that I couldn't convince myself were quite good enough. I need to set her inside her framework a little bit more on both ends of her skeleton. I'm big on how they're organized loose, and I ask those kiddos to step off of them. To me, we need to just make that doe better in terms of her spine carriage. Young man, you do a great job presenting her as well. Very fundamental doe that rounds out our top 5 in terms of feet and leg structure, top line consistency, probably a little better than the doe right ahead of her, and still has some muscularity. I didn't know if she was maybe as unique in some places as the rest of this lineup in terms of just the way that her rib cage is constructed and the look that she presents from the side, but I think feet and legs are awesome. A great one to round out our top 5. I visited with these kiddos about some of their projects. Let's give them all a big hand on a great way to get us started.
We need tag 266127 on the dam side. 266127.
Well, good morning, everyone. Here on the Wether Dam side of things, certainly excited to be here to sort this set of sheep on the first ever Wether Dam show here in Austin. So certainly honored to come sort these, and a really nice first class. I think a lot of different types and kinds in here, and even some different breeds that offer some challenges and some decisions to make. And I tried to study them kind of from a quality standpoint in their own right, because we got a nice Dorpert ewe down here and a South down here in the top 5. But nonetheless, I think the one that I'm going to start off with just needs to. She struck me pretty hard when she first walked in. This is a good skeleton one that's high-headed. She's really relaxed in her spine. She's stout at the ground. She's still youthful through her front front, one third. She doesn't. She's certainly not perfect. Sometimes she wants to get a little bit weaker there in her loin edge. She needs to be a little bit wider there around her tail head at the top side of her hip. But the freshest one here in this initial duo that I think just puts the most good together. The one coming out here in second, I won't lie, it's one that kind of worked up by default in time. This is a very complete ewe that's stout structured. She's bold caged. She spans a big rack. She too maybe wants to get a little weak there at the edge of her loin, but she ties good at the point of her shoulder. Where I think she really shines is when you ask that one to move, and I think that's where she has a distinct advantage of the one in third. This one is smooth skeleton. She's more correct in her angles, and like I said, maybe one that doesn't have as many ESTs as some of these in class, but I think just a really nice complete one that falls into second. The problem one for me is the one in third, and from the outside, she's certainly one that is very well presented. Really commend the young man. This is a big booted down one that's extremely fresh, probably the best presented one in class, to be honest. But she also has some pretty big holes that I think you have to decide whether you can tolerate or not. My biggest issue with her is when you set her into motion, she wants to get the deepest in her chest, she climbs up the most in her spine, and she's the most ill-balanced in her underline from the side. So those are the bad things. Now, class advantages are she's initially of this trio, she is the widest at the ground, she's the boldest in her cage, and she's probably the biggest in her rack. I just had to make the decision from a skeletal standpoint of how much you want to tolerate, and then again from an underlying quality, she's probably a little bit more mature looking, and especially than the one in the first. And so just some calls you have to make there. But I think one that I'm comfortable sliding into third. Again, a very well presented one that just has some issues for me. The Southdown ewe here in fourth is a really good one from a breed standpoint, and I think starts to hunt with these blacks pretty heavy. The young lady does an outstanding job getting her shown. This is just a very sound, functional, complete one. Then again, there's some challenging decisions to be made when you start going against blacks. I mean, the Southdowns in general, they're not going to handle quite as hard. They're not as crisp in their muscle shape. But I think if you study this one from a standalone standpoint, she's a sound, structured, really laid back in her knee, love her on the move. She just kind of runs out of gas and punch to compete any higher in this class, but a very nice Southdown ewe to go fourth. And then the one to round out the class to me is a very sound, functional one that, again, you maybe can't quick a big hole in her, but she doesn't have the ESTs and the extras that go along with some of these that are at the front of the class. To me, she wants to get a little bit deeper in her chest comparative to some of these, in the top two spots especially, and maybe doesn't have enough as much punch and pop to her muscle shape, but a very nice complete female to stand in fifth. Really nice set of sheep with a lot of differences. Let's give these kids a big round of applause for a very competitive first class.
Class 3 doe kids can check in. Results from Class 1 doe kids. 10th place was Cheyenne Cotton Cattle Mills FFA. 9th, Cadence Ergillen, Johnson City FFA. 8th, Jillian Castro, Sutton County 4-H. 7th, Kaylee Phelps, Wilson County 4-H. 6th was Riley Strider, Columbus FFA. 5th was John Buzek, Lavaca County 4-H. Breeder was Compadres Cabritos. 4th was Henley Cloud, Chambers County 4-H. Breeder was Compadres Cabritos. 3rd, Bailey Bennett, Galveston County 4-H. 2nd, Cadence Ergrillen, Johnson City FFA. And our class winner was Ace Metter, Leon County 4-H. Congratulations. Results from Class 1 ewe lambs. 10th place was Jolie Ramondo, McGregor FFA. 9th, Hope Foner, Hunt County 4-H. 8th, Reese Kelm, Navarro FFA. 7th, Chance Childers, Johnson County 4-H. 6th was Talia Diaz, Lorena FFA. 5th, Andrea Phillips, Coleman FFA. 4th, Taylor West, San Patricio County 4-H. 3rd, Uria Sanchez, Eastland FFA. 2nd was Braden Boff, Georgetown FFA. And our class winner was Claire Bland, Leon County 4-H. Congratulations. pleased to have the Texas Goat Breeders Association with us for this show. The TGBA is adding $100 to each exhibitor that places first through fifth on the doe side, so we appreciate their support. If they are TGBA members, those that place with a TGA membered breeder goat. Class 3 ewe lambs should be checking in. Class 3 ewe lambs, as well as Class 3 doe kids if they have not. Tag 842627. We need you to check in on the doe side. And tag 255545. Please come check in. We're pleased to have Devin Sisk Photography with us as our official show photographer. You're welcome to go get pictures taken in front of the backdrop. You can view and order photos online at devinsiskphotography.com. Still missing tag 842627 and tag 255545. Please come check in on the doe side. Tag 842627 from Van Zant County 4-H. We need you to check in.
Well, as we work into this second class, I think some differences here again. Our top five are a little bit different just in kind of the shapes and sizes they come from, and I think there's a ton of good in all five of these does. I'll be honest with you. I think that you could justify doing several different things here at the top end of this class, and I guess to me, you can't go searching for the one that maybe fits every piece of the puzzle. I think we've got pieces along the way, and maybe not the one that just puts it all into one package, and yet still very elite quality goats. And I thought the top pair was really close. To me, a little bit different just in terms of their kind. And I guess I keep going back to the one that, in my opinion, even though I think has one disadvantage in this pair, to me is just a little bit more unique in places. To me, not only does the young lady do a fantastic job getting that one presented, but when you just study true skeletal quality, I think that that one reads the most unique, in my opinion, in terms of the height of her shoulder blade, the way that her neck ties into her scapula, and how she progresses from there back. To me, she reads with just so much balance and so much symmetry from the side. I think her front end posture is very arrogant and is very correct, both on the standstill and in motion. She's great in terms of her lower joint work, and to me, still has some width when you get right in front of her in terms of just her forerib and her chest. The biggest question mark that I have on this one is, as I get right in behind her, is she quite big enough in terms of her pin set relative to a couple others out here? To me, when you get up on that doe and you study the curvature of her body cavity, I think she's still very dimensional. I wish she came back just a little bit bigger from behind, but to me, that one is the most striking. That one is the highest quality when we get off here to the side, and that's probably what allows her to beat the doe in second. The one in second, when she wants to cooperate and can park herself, I think still a proportional doe in her own right. To me, that one I think is still fundamental in terms of her basic build, and when we talk about her advantages in this pair that keep it tremendously close, she is bigger when you step right in behind her. She is a little bit crisper in terms of the shape that she lays on the top side of her skeleton, and is stouter out of her pin set and right there through the base of her leg. I get off to the side, or I study her in her natural state, both in motion and as I ask them to get off of them. I don't know that she's naturally as tall at the point of her shoulder or as correct in the way that her neck ties out of her blade relative to the doe we just talked about. She gets a little shorter in the build of her rump and ties her loin into her hip a little funky, and so to me it can throw that one off in terms of her balance and uniqueness from the side. But if you switch that pair and say that she's got just a little bit more in terms of mass, in terms of dimension, I wouldn't argue with you. I think they're both very good. The one that comes in third probably didn't catch my eye as quickly as they came in the ring, but I think just a good, high-quality, basic kind of a goat when you talk about one that props up with a nice image from the side. Tall-fronted, long, extended, and very smooth in terms of her silhouette here at this viewpoint. I think that one looks like a lady in terms of the way that her neck and shoulder are assembled. I guess to me, I couldn't convince myself there was enough punch really at any angle to get around that top pair. She gets a little fragile in terms of her bone work. I study her in regards to her forerib shape and the dimension that she spans up high, and she's just not in the same league as the others in this top five, but I thought she had so much quality in terms of just how she gets out and navigates the ring that she needed to be here in our front line. The one that comes next is very intriguing, young lady. You've done a great job getting her presented. Probably the biggest footed, the stoutest featured one in this entire class. I can appreciate that about her. And then when you get right on top of her, she's very, very muscular. Right out of her shoulder blade, that one might be the widest spread right over her rack and back to her loin edge. I have some issues with that one as we get to the side in terms of just balance. I read her to be a little deeper from her chine to her chest. I read that one to be a little steeper and rounder in the build of her hip and more straight there in the set of her hock. I just need to see that doe balance a little better as we get her parked, and then as we study her in motion, doesn't maybe stay as collected as some of those that precede her. Another very fundamental doe that comes next, that if you want to just get in and handle these critters, young lady, she's the best right at the top side of her blade. She's very, very good right out of her shoulder and back to her edges. That one is dialed in terms of her handle. Again, some balance things. She does a great job of making sure that one's always in check from the side because she wants to get a little deviated behind her spine. I thought she was plainer at the base of her shoulder, and then I need to square her up in terms of her structural base as she comes and goes. But a very, very good front line, a good class that we have with lots of differences. If you would, continue applauding these kids for their hard work on a great job.
Well, as we come out in Class 2 here, I think the quality certainly steps it up quite a few notches, and especially in this top 5 and 6. I know we lost a Blue U that toothed out. That was very nice, but the one that's going to win, she strikes me the most when she comes in the ring, and I think the more that you study her, it's probably the easier pick to win than I even initially envisioned. This one's very high quality. She strikes you the best from the side. I love her progression of underline. And if you truly study her at the ground in relation to these top 5, to have that high quality of a look from the side, she really doesn't give up any width at the ground. Just love a lot of things about this one. It'll be fun to get her out here in the end. A really nice high quality individual to start off with. The one coming here in second, I think follows the type and kind of trend of the one that wins, just doesn't do it in quite as good of a way. I don't think this one's quite as elegant through her front end. I don't think she's quite as muscular, and I don't think she's quite as exotic in her underline. But if you study her in her own right, she's still very good at all those things. I just don't think she takes it to the next level that this one in first does. A really high quality one here in second that just gets kind of runs into a buzzsaw. You coming out in third is the unique one of this top trio because you study this one from the top side of her skeleton. She is the most robust in her rack shape, the crispest to her touch. Really like that one from the three-quarter view. She ties a really neat twist down through her, really wide at the ground. My issue with her is of this top 3, she's the least unique through her front 1/3. She's probably the longest in her blade. She's the most coarse through the base of her neck, and also the shortest necked. And 2, when you watch that one go, she wants to pinch behind her shoulder and maybe just doesn't get out and go with the looseness and easiness as the 2 ahead of her, but certainly one that you have to appreciate from a muscularity standpoint. Width of skeleton, stoutness of feature, just muscle shape. All those things are great about her. Just like to free her up a little bit and pick her up in her front end and make her just a little bit more feminine through her head and neck. One coming out next is probably showing a little bit of maturity. She, too, is one that's really wide at the ground, stout-featured. Love her hip and lower stifle shape here, the look that she gives from the side. My biggest issue with her is if you study her through the front portions of her skeleton, she's the longest in her blade, the deepest in her chest, and probably hinting towards the most maturity, but probably one that's a little bit past her prime. It would have been fun to see this one a few months ago, but still, she's kept her together really well, shows her very well. Just to me, I think she's just a little past noon today, but a really nice ewe in her own right. You coming out in 5th is one that initially placed 6th. Again, I told this young lady, I like a lot of things about this brothel-faced ewe. She's really striking from the side. I think if you compare her to these the top 5 in this class, she just kind of runs out of gas from a width and stoutness of feature standpoint. But one that you love on the move, one that you love the way that she ties in the neck to the base of her shoulder, her chest, all those things are good. Just doesn't have quite the punch, the width, and dimension as the ones ahead of her today. But a really nice ewe to stand in 5th. Outstanding Class 2 here in the Commercial U Show. Let's give these kids a big round of applause.
Our Class 4 does need to be checking in. Class 4 does. Results from Class 2 doe kids. 10th place was Kylie Huffman, Ariane FFA. 9th was Kaylee Phelps, Wilson County 4-H. 8th was Hannah Graves, Orange Grove FFA. 7th was Luke Casasio, Huffman FFA. 6th, Kelby Blessing, Sutton County 4-H. 5th, Isabel Moon, Brazoria County 4-H. 4th, Isabella Silai, Judson FFA. 3rd, Sophia Dykes, Clear Springs FFA. 2nd went to Carly Piper, Mount Enterprise FFA. And our class winner was Kaylee Knowles, Harris County 4-H. Breeder was Techstar Genetics. Congratulations. Results from Class 2 ewe lambs. 10th was Ryder Tokarczyk, Anderson County 4-H. Ninth was Talia Diaz, Lorena FFA. Eighth was Daisy Ellis, Lampasas County 4-H. Seventh, Mason Smart, Jack County 4-H. Sixth, Lily Gonzalez, Aikens FFA. Fifth, Cadence Nance, Grimes County 4-H. Fourth was Cadence Nance, Grimes County 4-H. Third, Kaysen Wooten, Madison County 4-H. Second was Brody Wayne Fisher, Florence FFA. And our class winner was Grace Moore, Tom Green County 4-H. Congratulations. We do need Class 4 Doe Kids and Class 4 ewe lambs to line up. Class 4. Need tag 264282 on the doe side to come check in. For those wanting to live stream at home, they can go to Facebook or YouTube and search for Taylor Fort, and they can find the links to both of these shows. YouTube or Facebook, and search for Taylor Fort. For those that will be returning for the Market Lamb or Market Goat show, you can leave some of your items over on the west side of the barn in the dirt area. We would ask that you keep it to that area. We got to keep it clear of the aisles and things like that, so it needs to be over on the west side of the barn in the dirt area. You can leave it at your own discretion. Probably be encouraged to lock anything up that you can, but you are welcome to leave it over there in the dirt area on the west side.
Another class where the quality should certainly be commended, and it makes it a little bit challenging on my part because we've got so many different kinds, a lot of variation and a lot of parts that you can really gravitate to, and yet I think still some places in this class where you could go all the way down this front line and find an attribute, even in 4 and 5, that you say, well, that could win this class, and I really do think that's the case. To me, you start kind of adding up the positives, taking away some of the negatives, and just trying to find to me, the ones that are fault-free but still have uniqueness to them and still have things that to me, they come in and they hit you instinctually. The doe that's going to win this class, I think she does that to the highest degree. And while she's not perfect, I think that one is very, very high quality in terms of her skeleton and her balance from the side, tall-fronted, elevated. She does a great job presenting that one. And I like how, as you set that doe in motion, everything still stays collected the way that it needs to. If we're going to get critical on her, she's probably just a little frailer at the surface and a longer and weaker rear pastern, and that's where, to me, we could modify that doe just a little bit. But when you talk about true just skeletal width and honest dimension, that one's got a big chest laid into her. I think that she's the roundest and the shallowest in terms of her rib cage, and that facilitates the most dimensional topside shape in this particular class. Stouten her bone work up, fix her rear pastern in a little bit, and I think it makes her a very logical winner, and she still probably surfaces, in my opinion, of this class. I probably have a little more hesitation and hang up on the remaining trio that we have here, and I don't like to be a single trait selector. I think that if you do that on the paint doe that's going to come second, you can maybe have a negative impression, because when you just study her naturally, she wants to get just a little bit lazy in her top line, and she's not the biggest one from right behind. But again, you ask that one to collect herself here from the side in terms of just from her hip forward. That one I think is very, very good because she's tall at the point of her shoulder. I think that she's the neatest in terms of her neck to shoulder attachment, and relative to the does that stand behind her, I think the base of her shoulder blade and where her sternum lays into her body is a little neater and tidier here, both from the side and as I get to that front three-quarter. To me, that allows her to read just a little more youthful than some of her counterparts. Like I alluded to, naturally she gets just a little lazy behind her blade. Probably the biggest disadvantage she has, in my opinion, is when I get right in behind her. I wish she was a little more progressive back to her pin set, but I do think that that's a very high-quality goat that, again, front end, skeletal assembly, I think, is very, very good. The doe that's going to come in third, as you step right in front of her, she probably has one of the biggest class advantages in this entire lineup, young lady. That one's got a stout skull. She's got a tremendously wide chest, and that facilitates a great big rib cage that's laid into her there. I probably have some issues with that one as I step to this viewpoint from a balance standpoint, despite the fact that she's a little stronger behind her blade relative to the doe right ahead of her. To me, if you study the angle of her shoulder and her knee, she wants to buck forward just a little bit more than what I would term ideal, a straighter, frailer hind leg that I could set into her a little better. And then to me, she's probably the stalest and the least genuine when you get right on top of her, just in terms of the turn and roll of her body. But I think when you get that front three-quarter view, that's what allows her to stay here in our front line. The young lady coming in four, you probably got the heaviest muscled, most shapely doe in this entire class. Don't even have to lay your hands on that one to see that right out of her blade and back to her loin edge, she is very square. She's very honest in terms of her dimension. Just some balance things from the side that I'd like to change here in a high-quality class. I couldn't convince myself that she was tall enough fronted and neat enough through the front part of her body and her chest relative to the three ahead of her to go ahead and slide her on up. That's probably not the case with the one that rounds out the class, young man, and that's what kept some decisions close, because she is more consistent in the look that she gives you from this viewpoint. She is more collected in her spine and a little neater right there at the base of her chest. But of our front line, she's quite a bit the narrowest constructed, the flattest in terms of her body, and the least dimensional from behind, and so that's what slid her on down in a very competitive lineup. A good class yet again with lots of differences. Keep congratulating these kids on an excellent job.
Here again on the Wether Dam side of things, man, a really, really nice class here, and I'm very pleased with the top five, and there's very subtle differences that I think you just have to decide on what your trade-offs are. But to me, it kind of came down to these two, and I think if you study them from a standalone standpoint, the one that I'm going to start with, there's just simply more to her. I think she's more exotic from the side. I love how this one gets progressive in her underline. I think when you ask her to move, she's just a little bit cocky and more arrogant on the move. Love her running wheels, obviously one that's very stout at the ground. And then from a muscularity standpoint, you study through the top portion of her hip and the lower portion of her stifle. She just simply has more to her, doesn't give it up anywhere, and is just more exotic looking from the side. So for me, I think she's just a very sensible place to start and a very high-quality individual. The one coming out here in second, not to take anything away from her, because she is a little bit probably better in her handle quality. I know these are Wether dams, and so that does come into play a little bit as you're making that decision, because that one is dialed in. She's extremely fresh, awesome to the touch, probably the best handling one I've handled today. Again, you just compare her back to the class winner. She's just not quite as progressive in her underline. She's not as aggressive in the turn to her stifle and the depth to her twist, but a really high-quality one. Love this one when she gets out and goes. She's high-headed. She's good on her running gear. I just think runs out of gas just in terms of in comparison to the class winner. The 1 and 3 is one that kind of I traded back and forth of where can you put her. To me, where she climbs up a little bit here is I love this one on the move. She's cocky-headed. She's very flexible. But I think if you compare her to the two that stand in front of her, she's the shortest measuring, she's the shortest loin, she's the shortest hip, and she's the shortest spine. So she's a little just more compact. But I love the muscle shape and the aggressive turn that this one had. Another one that's very good in her skeleton. I just like to lengthen her out just a little bit more to make her run against the two ahead of her, but a really nice ewe in her own right. The problem ewe for me in this class is the one that comes out in 4. Love a lot of things about this one. She's extremely stout at the ground. She's very wide, probably the most crisp in her shape outside of the 1 and 2. My biggest issue with her is she's just showing a little bit too much maturity for me through the front portion of her skeleton. Of this top 5, she is the longest in her blade. She's the deepest in her chest. And one, again, like I've said a few times today, I would have really liked to seen a few months ago. An extremely high-quality individual, the best 4th-place sheep we've had all day. I just like to clean her up through the front portions of her skeleton there, but a ton of good in that one. The one coming out in 5 here, I think of this top 5, she's the softest in her handle and the most bland to her touch. But you get out of that, that's a striking one from the side that's very feminine neck. She's long spine, she's flexible. To me, sometimes she wants to fight this young man on the move in her neck, and so you start to question, well, is that the angle to her shoulders? Is she just being a little bit stubborn? But I think of this 5, she has the least amount of shape through her stifle there, and like I said, through her handle, she's the most bland, but a very nice feminine-looking female that'll do an outstanding job for this young man. But a very competitive top 5. Love this class. Let's give these kids a big hand for a very nice class of Wether dams.
Results for Class 3 Doe Kids. 10th place was Aiden Saunier, Alvin FFA. 9th, Brooke Barnes, Deer Park FFA. 8th, Cadence Agrillan, Johnson City FFA. 7th, Cade Panetta, Clayburgh Kennedy County 4-H. 6th, Ashlyn Martinez, Zavala County 4-H. 5th, Roston Bowles, Wilson County 4-H. Breeder is Wright Showgoats. 4th, Kylie Ruiz, Live Oak County 4-H. Breeder is Humphrey Livestock. 3rd, Avery Fisher, Van Zant County 4-H. 2nd was Cooper Evans, Burnett County 4-H. Breeder is Evans Livestock. And our class winner was Tana Winberg, Deer Park FFA. Congratulations. Class 5 does and dams should be checking in. Class 5. Results from Class 3 ewe lambs. 10th was Uriah Sanchez, Eastland FFA. 9th, Olivia Calhoun, Chapel Hill FFA. 8th, Emma Neal, Leon County 4-H. 7th, Avery Detton, Deaf Smith County 4-H. Sixth, Lysa Vick, Cypress Ranch FFA. Fifth, Graham Fisher, Wichita County 4-H. Fourth, Emerson Garner, Leonard FFA. Third, Rayleigh Zapalak, Wise County 4-H. Second went to Bristol Fisher, Bell County 4-H. And our class winner was Kaislyn Etheridge, Lubbock Cooper FFA. Congratulations. Once again, Class 5 Doe Kids and you lambs should be checking in. Still missing 5 exhibitors from Class 5 Doe Kids. tag 266318. We need you to check in on the doe side.
I think another good class that maybe just here at the top starts to fall together just a little bit more logical than some of the others. If you guys want to, let's turn those does this way. There we go. A good lineup, and again, there's a lot of differences throughout here, and I think, to me, there's one thing to do, and that's to start the doe at the front of the lineup, and then after that, I think a lot of variation again, and really just where you want to put your emphasis on things, but I do think the young lady here that's at our front line had the class winner as soon as she came in the ring in this particular grouping, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that doe is the most of anything, but I just think she's the best of everything. To me, stoutness, openness of skeleton, roundness, and just turn of body is very good. And yet, even though she's not just the most exotic looking critter up front that we've seen all day, I think balance and symmetry and skeletal quality favors her in this lineup pretty well. I think she comes in and demands your attention amongst this lineup. And then from there, we get just a little bit more spread and variation. I did think, though, between 2 and 3, I give up maybe just a little bit of depth and body to get just a little more quality, in my opinion, from the side. And the young lady's cape fronted doe here, I think height of shoulder and the way that her front end is constructed is just a little bit more to my liking than the one that's going to be in third. A doe that's really tremendously good, right in the top side of her skeleton. Good spread, good turn, good shape out of her blade. As we start to compare her to our class winner, I don't know that she's as stout in terms of her bone work. And then to me, as we study the true just essence of proportionality from the side, where her rear flank sits relative to her chest probably isn't in the same league as our class winner. And so that's what sorted that to me. But I do think that as I get to this viewpoint, that doe's just a look and lateness and maturity and length and extension and levelness I favor just a little bit more than the one that's going to come in third. Young lady that's got her third place doe probably does have a wider constructed, bigger chested one that has tremendous in terms of just the amount of body that she has. I like the depth to her rear flank. In my opinion, she comes off just a little more conventional than both the does ahead of her in this lineup. A little lower fronted, a little shorter bodied. I need to stouten her and strengthen her at the surface to get around the one that sits right in front of her. But I like her at the base of her skeleton and the mid part of her body just in terms of having some dimension. And even with that said, I think she still probably has just a little bit more proportionality than the doe that's going to come next, and due in part the fact that she's just set a little bit higher at the base of her tail and probably just a little bit more proportional in her bottom line symmetry. If you want to get on top of one and just study roundness of body and true dimension in their upper skeleton, that the young lady's doe here in 4 certainly does that, because she is very, very big right here behind her shoulder blade. Young lady, as I step to this viewpoint, though, she gets a little rounder in the build of her hip and a little more rigid in the set to her hind leg. And as I study her in her natural stance, I think that doe's starting to read just a little bit more mature there at the base of her chest and sternum. Has a little bit more condition on her as well, but I like the top side dimension. Lateness and maturity, length and extension definitely favor the young lady's doe that's going to round out our top 5, and she probably is a little more consistent in her top line and out of her hip. I thought of our front line, though, as I got right in front of them. I stepped right behind him, young lady. You probably had the narrowest constructed, flattest bodied one, and so that's what sorted you down the line here in a very tough class. But a really good grouping. I think a logical class winner in this lineup. Again, let's continue to show these kids our appreciation for all their efforts.
Results from Class 4 Doe Kids. 10th, Nathalie Luna, Longview FFA. 9th, Sarah Langston, Hardin County 4-H. 8th, Isabella Rodriguez, Tarrant County 4-H. 7th, Chloe Todd, Longview FFA. 6th, Kaysen McAfee, Caddo Mills FFA. 5th, Kamla Ramirez, Clayburgh Kennedy County 4-H. 4th, Lakin Callahan, North Hopkins FFA. 3rd was Emily Bettiga, Erath County 4-H. Breeder was Lazy JB Livestock. 2nd went to Paige Zilke, Splendora FFA. Breeder is Newsom Ripley. And our class winner was Addison Maxey, Harris County 4-H. Congratulations. Class 6 Doe Kids should check in. Class 6. There is a heeler mix looking dog running around loose on the grounds. Someone needs to go take care of that, please. Loose dog on the grounds. Once again, if you are coming back for the market lamb or goat show, you're welcome to put items over on the west side of the show barn in the dirt area. Nothing can be left over on the concrete, in the alleys, or in the pens. If it is left, it will go away.
A very challenging class of weather dams, and I'll be honest, the one that I'm going to lead off with is not perfect, and she's got one big hole, and I have to decide whether to tolerate that or not. But obviously the decision came down between the first two here, and I think for me, they really separate themselves. When you set this one in first into motion, she's the freest moving. I love her head carriage. I love the angles through her skeleton. I think she's just a little bit more relaxed through the center portion of her spine. And in relation to the one behind her, I think she's just a shot squarer over her loin edge. I think she's a little bit fuller out through the portions of her tail. And then I think if you study them through the lower portions of her stifle as well, she just has more genuine pop and turn. The question mark for me is she can give you some pretty ill-balanced angles in her flank line. And so to me, I had to decide whether you want to tolerate her at that or not. To me, I'm going to go ahead and run with her because I still think she's the most unique and she still has the most good to her. Those blue dark fiber sheep can be a little bit harder to read. I don't mind them, but you just have to study them a little bit longer because they can kind of blend in and be decisive from the outside. But I think regardless of this one's color, I'm still very confident she's the highest quality and the most unique one to start off with. So that's not to take anything away from this one in second, because if you just look at this one from a standalone standpoint, she's extremely impressive when you start studying her at the ground. This one is huge featured at the ground, really wide made, and I will give her the advantage within that pair. She's definitely more balanced in her underline. As we talked about in relation to the class winner, for me, in relation, I think she just gets a little bit higher in her spine when she moves around. She's maybe not quite as square over her loin edge or full through the portions of her upper hip or the lower portions of her leg, but that's an extremely high-quality individual to stand in second that has a ton of quality. I think a very nice top pair that just has some subtle trade-offs, but they're both very high quality. The one coming out in 3 is one that really struck me when I first came in, and I think the longer you study her, she kind of just naturally falls into 3rd. She's probably offering the most maturity through her front end. I think if you look at her compared to the top 2, she's the longest bladed. She's the deepest through her chest. However, she's still skinny necked, but I think if you talk about some of the positive qualities in her, I love that one's rib cage. I love her running gear. She is perfect in her rib cage in terms of the center portion and turn. I love the way that her loin edge sets into her. To me, she just kind of runs out of gas in terms of ESTs and maybe some of those extras that the 2 ahead of her have. I'd like to stouten her up at the center portion of her leg there, shorten her up in her blade, but a very high quality individual to stand in 3rd. The one in 4th certainly has some class advantages in terms of just muscle shape. This one is huge backed, very expressive to the touch, just massive racked, really big and expressive there, and just overall muscle shape. I think that starts to work to her disadvantage, though, at times, because she just gets a little bit harsher overall. She, too, wants to climb up in the center portion of her spine. Doesn't quite tie right there in the center portion of her loin, but a stout-featured, ripped-up one that I think just starts to work to her disadvantage in terms of muscle shape, but really appreciate the positive attributes that she brings. And the one that comes in 5, I think, kind of worked her way up. Just a nice, solid quality individual there that maybe doesn't have any huge holes, but I also think she doesn't have any things that allow her to work up any higher today. A really sound, functional, sound structured one that works the way around her ring very freely and easily. She, too, just gets a little bit plainer in her overall appearance. Needs to be a little bit taller shouldered. Toned her up a bit, but the young lady does an outstanding job getting her shown. A very nice top 5, lots of differences. Really like the front 2 here, but let's give these kids a hand for a very competitive class.
Our Class 6 does should be checked in. Our Class 6 dams should be checking in. Class 6. We need our first and second place ewe lambs to report to check-in. First and second place. If you were first or second in our previous classes of ewe lambs, you need to check in. Class 6 doe kids should be checking in. Results from Class 4 of ewe lambs. 9th was Andrea Phillips, Coleman FFA. 8th, Cannon Travis, Somerville County 4-H. 7th, Sage Garrick, Columbus FFA. 6th, Kinley Land, Brown County 4-H. 5th, Brady Brister, Wise County 4-H. 4th, Harper Garrick, Columbus FFA. 3rd, Gemma Chainley, Robertson County 4-H. 2nd was Olivia Sandy, Erath County 4-H. And our class winner is Avery Walton, Eastland FFA. Congratulations.
As we work through this next class, I think we start to be able to maybe find in places a little more consistency as we go down the line, at least in terms of kind of the things that I'm looking for in terms of a skeletal quality perspective. You know, we've got a lot of variation and differences in terms of just muscularity, openness of skeleton, but I do think that we've got even equally as many differences in terms of how they're built from the side. And the doe that's going to start the class, I think, kind of blends those two things together to the highest degree. I really like watching this one in motion, because to me, she's the most consistent, she's the most collected. I think that one parks and gives you a nice silhouette from the side, and yet still, if you get underneath of her, you get on top of her, I'm not going to tell you that she's the widest, stoutest one that's ever been made, but I think she's still got trueness in terms of her body. I think she's still got trueness in terms of how much dimension she lays on the upper part of her skeleton. In a perfect world, we stouten up her bone work just a little bit. We shape her up just a little square right behind her blade, but I think that's still a round-bodied, good cage type of a doe that I think relative to some of the ones that sit behind her, probably just has a higher quality silhouette in this particular lineup. I thought a really, really close decision between 2 and 3, and I guess to me, just lower joint work and structure is what sorts that particular pair. The young lady's doe in second. We probably don't get as much just drive and brace up fronted as what we do in the 1 and 3, but I think if you study her from her shoulder blade to the ground, and if you study her from her hock to the ground, not only is she the stoutest structured one of this entire lineup that we've got here, but I think she's the best. I think she's the squarest and the truest, and that's what gets her here into this second place hole. I think that one relative to the doe in 3 is far more attractive in the build of her hind leg. I think she is really collected in her top line and still good enough in her bottom line symmetry. I don't know that she's as tucked up and shallow in terms of her forerib shape as the one right behind her, and that's what keeps it really close for me, because young man in 3, from that doe's hip forward, I want her to be my class winner. I think that she's tremendously good in terms of the turn and the shape of her rib cage. She's the squarest one when you lay her hands right behind her blade of our top trio. I guess to me, I think read that that one to be the narrowest constructed at the base of her skeleton of our entire front line. And then when I get off to this viewpoint right here, her hip and hind leg build just isn't quite as attractive. She gets a little frailer and excessive in the set to her rear leg, and so that's what slid her down into a competitive third. From a front three-quarter view, young lady, you've probably got the class winner because that is the biggest chested, the widest constructed one throughout her lower body. And I think she matches it when you get behind her. If you just study that doe from her hock to the ground, she's massive in terms of skeletal dimension. I get to this viewpoint here, and you do such an excellent job of presenting her collected in her spine, very, very good right behind her blade. I read that doe to be just a little too frail down low relative to her body mass. I study the way that she sits from chine to her chest, just a little deeper and plainer, a little bit too much mid-body fill, in my opinion, that throws her balance off from this standpoint. And then with all that width, I got to square her hock up as we go away. But I like that one from the front three-quarter view. Same story for the one that's going to round out our top five. She got to that spot because she's so open at the base of her skeleton. I thought relative to the doe that we left standing on 6 over there, her turn of rib cage and her natural dimension up high was just a little more impressive in my opinion. But to get a little higher in this lineup, we got to balance that doe just a nickel better. She wants to deviate more behind her blade, the steepest in the build of her rump and the most excessive in the set to a frailer hind leg of this lineup. That's what sorted her down amongst a competitive group. Another great class full of great young people. Let's continue to congratulate them on all their hard work.
Again, our first and second place ewe lambs need to check in. First and second place ewe lambs. Our yearling class can go ahead and check in as well. First and second place ewe lambs and our yearling class, which would be class 6. Results from Class 5 Doe Kids. 10th place, Madison Purchase, Atascosa County 4-H. 9th, Hannah Graves, Orange Grove FFA. 8th, Gracie Rainey, Glasscock County 4-H. 7th, Kylie Ruiz, Live Oak County 4-H. 6th, Faith Bailey, Splendora FFA. 5th, Lane Socius, Galveston County 4-H. 4th, Mallory Dykeman, Tomball Memorial FFA. Breeder is Titanium Livestock. 3rd, Ralston Bowles, Wilson County 4-H. Breeder is Triple D Livestock. 2nd, Avery Martin, Atascosa County 4-H. Breeder is Newsom Ripley. And our class winner was Sydney Newsom, Edwards County 4-H. Breeder is Blue Team Weathers. Congratulations. Update on Class 5, that fifth place of Lane Socius. Breeder was Techstar Genetics. Congratulations. Class 7 doe kids should be checking in. And again, our first and second place ewe lambs should be checked in, as well as our yearling class can check in. Again, if you have a first or second place ewe lamb, you need to be at check-in.
Another outstanding class of weather dams here, and we're starting to get into the size and maturity that we're going to start working through some issues. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't know if there's one that just comes out and screams that you have to use it. But I do think there's some subtle differences, specifically within the top three, that all have some challenges to work through. But at the end of the day, I think if you just look at these three, you really got to lead off with the white pelted ewe lamb here. To me, I think she just stays the most collected on the move, especially in relation to the blue ewe lamb behind her. She's more elevated through her chest. She's taller at the point of her shoulder. She stays more collected in her spine, and I think she's just a little bit wider and stouter at the ground. Again, she maybe just gets a little bit straight and forward to the angle to her shoulder, but I'm going to tolerate that just fine. I think just a nice high-quality individual to start the class off with as we get into some of these upper weights. Not to take anything away from the one behind her, because this one does have the advantage in terms of just shape and handle and sheer just tone. That one is very good there. She handles with more shape and dimension to her top. She's more aggressive and poppy there through the lower portion of her stifle. My issue with her is when you set her into the motion, she's starting to show the most maturity there through the front portion of her skeleton. She gets the boldest and deepest and most mature through her chest. I'd like to lengthen her neck out a little bit, shorten her up in her blade, and just bring her up overall in her front end, and maybe make her just a little bit more collected in her loin edge and her spine on the move. But that's a shapely, high-quality one that's just probably getting a little bit mature. Like a lot of things about this one in three, especially when we get her stuck. This one is level topped, really correct in the set to her hip and hind leg. But to me, when you get her into move, that's when she starts to show a little bit more of her issues. She's the most forward in the angle to her blade, and that she compensates by doing that by putting it up in her spine. Again, I like the hip and hind leg set on the drive here, but when you get her into motion, she just gets a little bit straighter. Of that initial trio, she's the shortest spine and the shortest in extension through her front 1/3. But again, I like her when she gets stuck. Just like to change some things about her when we get her on the move. The speckled face ewe lamb coming out here in fourth is one that certainly stood some class challenges here. The white breed influences kind of have some challenges when they go up against the blacks, and this is a really nice one in her own right, a really smooth pattern, sound structured one that starts wide at the ground, that's stout featured. To me, I'd just like to drop her in her flank, and as expected, with that white breed influence, she just kind of runs out of pop and gas in terms of muscle shape, but a very nice pattern one that I'd just like to drop in her flank, get a little bit more tone, but one that strikes a really nice look from the side. And the one coming out in 5 is honestly on the opposite end of the spectrum. This one is really a hard handling, hard made, but I think that starts to work to her disadvantage. She's just a little bit too hollow for me, a little bit too harsh in the center portion of her rib. Like to drop in her flank, but love the tone and handle and muscle shape that she brings. She just needs to be softened up a little bit to climb up any higher. But class that has a lot of differences, like the one that we start off with, but let's give these kids a big round of applause.
Results from Class 5 ewe lambs: 10th, Riley Tokarczyk, Anderson County 4-H. 9th, Sophia McElwain, Goldthwaite FFA. 8th, Whitney Drummond, Williamson County 4-H. 7th, Riley Tokarczyk, Anderson County 4-H. 6th, Addison Maxey, Harris County 4-H. 5th, Kaylee Daniel, Fayette County 4-H. 4th, Huston Hortz, Early FFA. 3rd, Skylar Meadows, Montgomery County 4-H. 2nd, Keegan Callahan, North Hopkins FFA. And our class winner, Morgan Hernandez, Hayes County 4-H. Congratulations. All right, we are ready for our ULAM Division Drive. First place out of Class 1 went to Claire Bland, Leon County 4-H. First place from Class 2 was Grace Moore, Tom Green County 4-H. First from Class 3 was Caselyn Etheridge, Lubbock Cooper FFA. First from Class 4 was Avery Walton, Eastland FFA. And first from Class 5 was Morgan Hernandez, Hayes County 4-H. Second from Class 1 was Braden Boff, Georgetown FFA. Second from Class 2 was Brody Wayne Fisher, Florence FFA. Second from Class 3 was Bristol Fisher, Bell County 4-H. Second from Class 4 was Olivia Sandy, Erath County 4-H. And second from Class 5 was Keegan Callahan, North Hopkins FFA. Folks, let's give these exhibitors a big round of applause.
Over on the goat side, without a doubt, the deepest class that we've had so far today, just in terms of quality. I think all the way down the line, we've got a lot of really, really nice does out here, and yet still some variation just in what we've got brought to us. And I think this front line, to me, just hit me just a little harder. And that said, the pair at the top, I think, are just a little bit more unique in terms of their presentation, how they come together from the side. There's some subtle differences amongst the pair, and the one that I favor fits me just a little bit better in terms of the way that they're designed from the profile, length, extension, height of shoulder, the way that their sternum sets into their body. I think that that one does things to a little bit higher degree. As you step off to this viewpoint right here, that's the longer bodied doe that's a bit taller at the point of her blade and takes her neck higher from there forward. I think from her chine to her chest, that one is the most symmetrical and progresses back the best from there on. If you start to study her relative to the one that comes in second, probably not as stout just in terms of her bone work, maybe a little extra in the set to her hind leg. I think that that one is immensely good, though, in terms of the way that her lower forerib sits into her body, probably a little more progressive back to her pin set even than what our second place entry is. I thought the difference maker to me, though, was just this viewpoint and how built in the front part of their skeleton. The young lady that's got the paint doe in second, the minute that one came in the ring, I knew that she was going to be a player, because not only is presentation very, very elite in that one, but her stoutness at the surface. Big-footed, stout forearm doe that is massive when you get right on top of her in terms of the turn and the roll to her rib cage. That's the biggest racked one that's really, really good in that regard. At the same token, when I step off to this viewpoint right here, that's a shorter necked doe that doesn't tie as smoothly into side of her shoulder blade. I read her to just a little bit more plain there in terms of the way that her chest sits into her body. And then as I study that doe, as they prop up, as they get in motion, I just don't think that she's quite as tall-fronted and unique as the one that wins the class. If you like just a little bit more moderation and openness of skeleton, I wouldn't argue with you there, because that one's very, very good as well. The one that comes in third, if we could just chest judge them, I think that one could arguably win the class, young lady. She is the boldest and the biggest right there through the floor of her chest, and that facilitates an awesome turn to her cage as well. I didn't think, though, that she hit me just as hard from the side as that top pair, because she is a little more fragile in terms of her bone work relative to her body mass. I think that doe's a little shorter and steeper in the build of her rump, and probably pushing more condition than her top pair as well, and so that's what slides her into third. Late maturing, tall-fronted, extended doe that comes next. If we just study her in the front part of her body, young lady, she probably more I like this doe in terms of her underlying quality, really good in terms of just how she connects out of her blade all the way to her spine and back to her tail. But like the one that precedes her there, I need to open her up there at the base of her chest. I need to stouten her in terms of her pin set, and then just strengthen her in her rear pastern for her to go ahead and work up a little higher in this class. Very, very good group, very competitive group. Let's congratulate these kids on all their hard work.
Once again, our Class 6 yearlings on the dam side should be checked in. Class 6 yearlings. Results from Class 6 Doe Kids. 10th, Michaela Holcomb, Wise County 4-H. 9th, Emily Bettiga, Erath County 4-H. 8th, Adalyn Arnold, Montgomery County 4-H. 7th, Lacey Piper, Concordia Lutheran FFA. 6th, Chance Metter, Leon County 4-H. 5th, Ashlyn Martinez, Zavala County 4-H. Breeder is south of Nueces. 4th, Hannah Brooks, Burnett County 4-H. Breeder is Evans Livestock. 3rd, Raina Epley, New Home FFA. Breeder is Shrank Showgoats. 2nd, Alita De La Paz, Riviera Coffer FFA. Breeder is Bull Livestock. And our class winner was Lainey Smuzik, Belton FFA. Congratulations. Class 8 Doe Kids should check in. Class 8.
Well, let's give these young kids a huge round of applause for these 5 classes of weather dams. You know, with the first year show, and I know we have some more classes to go. You just never know what the numbers and quality are going to be like. But I know the show certainly maybe wasn't super stout in terms of numbers, but I can tell you the top 4 or 5 out here are extremely good, and so I feel very fortunate to judge these and be able to talk about them and like quite a few of them quite a bit. So one thing that I'll try to do is just give you a little bit of an idea where my head's at, especially on these top 5, and then maybe a few seconds in class, because I go to a lot of shows and you hear the guys talk about them on the mic, or the girls that are judging, and it's always nice to know where their head is kind of at the end of the day. So coming out of class 1, one where we talked about just maybe a little bit green as you expect coming out of class 1, the one that's made really well, very good skeleton. I think gets out here maybe just a shot immature and maybe not quite as jazzy through the front portions of her skeleton, maybe not quite as much out through the top side of her hip, but I think a unique one. The young lady does an outstanding job getting shown. Coming out of class 2, man, the heat really stepped up there, and this is a very high quality ewe. I think one that hit me hard, extremely good in class, and I think you get her out here, and that's just a unique animal. I think she puts a lot of really good things together, from the outside, as we talked about in class. That one is just so good in her underline. She's very free moving. I think you get her out here. She's one that is so big in her rack shape that sometimes that just wants to throw off her balance from the side. And I think she could be just a nickel longer necked, but that's getting picky on one that is extremely high end, very well presented, handles incredible. I think that one does a lot of things in a very good way and a very unique animal. just talk about the one that came out a second out of that class. That's one that we just talked about that just honestly follows the same type and trend of this one, of the class winner here coming out of 2, just maybe doesn't do it to quite the extent. I think that one is very similar. Young man does an outstanding job getting her shown. I think once you get that one on the move, you get her out here, you'd like to balance her up in her underline just a little bit, maybe pick her up at the top side of her shoulder, but that's a darn good one standing in second coming out of class 2. Coming into class 3, this one is a little bit different speed. This one is very exotic in her underline, and the stoutest featured and the most ripped up out here. I think she does those things very good. She's real rugged. Young lady does an outstanding job getting her shown. I think if you relate her to the one that stands coming out of class 2, she maybe just doesn't quite handle with that pizzazz and just super thin skin, but it just goes along with her type and kind. That one's just rugged made. Love her underline, love her stoutness of feature, love her muscle shape, skeleton, all those things. Definitely one that's highly in the mix here and another high quality individual. The dark fibered ewe coming out of class 4 is another one that I love her running gear. You get this one out, she moves very freely. Love her hip and hind leg set, the unique factor that she has out there. I think, again, as we talked about her in class, I just need that one to be a little bit deeper in her flank to balance in her underline. I like a lot of things about that one. That's a very high-quality, unique one. Would just like to soften her up in her flank ever so slightly, but a super high-quality individual coming out of class 4. And as we get into class 5, as we talked about, getting into some of those upper weights, some ewes that start to show their maturity, but I'm very happy with the one that we found in that class being a sound, functional, stout-featured one that really offers some unique attributes being at that high of a weight. But to me, it comes down to 2. I think there's one that's just a nickel more unique than the other one, but I'm super pleased with the 2 that we're going to go with. I know we have a few classes left, but once again, let's give these kids a really big round of applause for a very high-quality set of Wether dams.
Our champion ewe lamb goes to Grace Moore, Tom Green County 4-H. And reserve goes to Caselyn Etheridge, Lubbock Cooper FFA. Congratulations. Need quite a few kids for Class 8 doe kids. If you have a Class 8 doe kid, you need to check in. Class 7 aged ewes can check in.
Adams Fab. Established in 2007, they build custom livestock pinning and equipment to fit all your needs. Hanger feeder rods, adjustable slam gate latches, and skirted panels. It all comes standard. Custom pins made by hand and hot dipped galvanized so that you know that they're going to last. Adams Fab is a certified TIPS vendor and can design, fabricate, and install equipment to fit all your needs. Visit AdamsFabLivestock.com to get started today.
has the same kind of turn of rib, back shape, dimension that our class winner has. The difference for me is as I study her in her natural state or parked, she gets too deviated behind her shoulder. She wants to rock forward in her knee, and then I don't think she handles her hind leg quite good enough as we ask those two to circle. But I did think that there was a bigger gap, a bigger difference, and just skeletal dimension between her and the one that's going to come third. The most seamless, the most unique one from the side, in my opinion, comes in 3, young man. You do an excellent job of getting her propped up and presented here. The tallest fronted, the shallowest chested, the best in terms of her lower body progression. I love all those things about her. I just couldn't convince myself that when I get to this rear 3/4 that she's got enough width at the base of her chest to facilitate enough turn, enough shape to her rib cage. I thought she was the frailest of our initial trio, and I thought she was the flattest of our initial trio. That's what slides her down in what is a very competitive class. Really like the young lady's doe that comes 4 up front. Just from her hip forward, tall-shouldered, big forearm doe that sits her forerib really correctly into her body cavity, and then that facilitates a very good shape right to her rack. You'll notice every now and then, though, to me, there's some structure things we can change in that one. She wants to tighten in her spine, both on the standstill and as we ask her to go. I think a doe that gets a little more fragile, a little steeper in the build of her hip and hind leg as we ask her to circle. Really stout, structured, highly presented doe that rounds out our top 5 that's got a tremendous amount of just volume and body. But of this initial grouping, I think she's the most mature in terms of her chine to chest relationship today. I think got the most condition on her and probably just the least true in terms of her dimension. But I thought lower structure and quality of her lower structure is what got her here to the front line. A very good class. Let's congratulate all these kids.
Okay, we are ready for our Weather Dam drive. We're going to start off with our ULAM champion, presented by Grace Moore, age 15, from San Angelo, Texas, member of Tom Green County 4-H. Grace plans on going to OSU or Texas Tech for college. She enjoys spending time with her animals. Our yearling U champion went to Evan Sylvester, 17-year-old from Crum, Texas, member of Denton County 4-H. Evan plans on going to Texas A&M. He enjoys showing sheep. Our aged U champion went to Hudson Hortz, age 15, from Zephyr, Texas, member of Early FFA. Plans on going to Texas Tech University. She enjoys showing lambs and hogs. Our U-Lamb Reserve champion went to Caselyn Etheridge, age 16, from Lubbock, Texas, member of Lubbock Cooper FFA. She enjoys, wants to be a vet, wants to either go to South Plains and then Texas Tech or Texas A&M. Enjoys showing and raising livestock. Our yearling U Reserve champion went to Michaela Swire, age 15, from Farwell, member of Palmer County 4-H. Michaela plans on getting a bachelor's in psychology from the University of Florida or LSU and a master's to become a pediatric operational therapist. Enjoys showing and raising livestock and reading classic novels. And our aged U Reserve champion went to Sydney Drosh, 17-year-old from Travis County 4-H. Plans on getting a degree in horticulture, and she enjoys photography. Folks, got an outstanding group of exhibitors out here. Let's give them a big round of applause. Tag 840518. Your class is going in the ring. 840518 on the doe side. For our champion dam selection, we have Mr. Dolphin Jackson, our Rodeo Austin president, here today to present our awards. We appreciate him joining us. Let's give him a big round of applause. Results from Class 8 Doe Kids. 10th place was Caleb Bunger, Rivera Coffer FFA. 9th, Hudson Rios, Tarrant County 4-H. 8th, Audrey Epp, Kaufman County 4-H. 7th, Harper Ellis, Van Zant County 4-H. 6th, Raina Epley, New Home FFA. 5th went to Paisley Akins, Grayson County 4-H. Breeder is PJ Akins Shokoats. 4th, Kaylee Phelps, Wilson County 4-H. Breeder is Triple D Livestock. 3rd, Aiden Dela Cruz, Clayburgh Kennedy County 4-H. 2nd was Elvis McCree, Deer Park FFA. And our class winner was Luke Casasio, Huffman FFA. Breeder is Evans Livestock. Congratulations.
Well, as we get out here onto the grand drive of the Wether Dams, let's give not only these 6 kids inside the ring, but everybody outside the ring that didn't make the cut a big round of applause for a high-quality show. I'm not big into grand drive speeches or anything like that, and I honestly don't do very many of these anymore. Just with the hustle bustle at home, with a job and kids, and in our own operation, it's just really hard to take the time to cut away, but I'm really glad that I did this. I had a lot of fun, and I really appreciate Rodeo Austin inviting me to come down here, and it was an honor. Mr. Jeff Thane, very lucky to have him here at Rodeo Austin. He was actually my livestock judging coach. Jeff taught me a lot about livestock, a lot about life, and so it's a big honor for me to come down here to judge this under his direction. And yeah, I guess the biggest thing, it's been an outstanding show. Very honored to come judge the first annual Wether Dam show here at Austin. I was very pleased with the quality, especially on the top end. You just never know, like I said, what you're going to get the first year, numbers, things like that. And there were some elite ones today, without a doubt. But I want to thank my ring help. Can we give them a big round of applause for an outstanding job keeping things flowing both inside and outside the ring? And I want to say hi to my wife and kids back home. I'm sure thanks to Taylor Fort and his outstanding crew, they're watching online. But kids, just don't forget to thank everybody that helps you get here, whether it's parents, grandparents, ag teachers, anybody. Y'all are so lucky in the state of Texas to have the support that you do for agriculture. I'm from central Iowa, and we're a very ag-rich community, but the immense amount of support you get here, not only at Rodeo Austin, but all your Texas majors and your county support, please don't take that for granted, because that is not something we receive back in the state of Iowa. And so let's give everybody a big round of applause for all the support of Rodeo Austin one more time. To kind of talk about the sheep, we talked about them kind of all day. As we get out here into the grand drive, I just think there's 2 that still kind of separate themselves from the rest. Not to take anything away from anything else out here, but I think there's 2 that are awfully good. Very pleased that they showed up here to the show today. And again, thank you for inviting me. Really appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to go show you the 2 that we like. But again, let's give these kids another round of applause.
Our champion ewe lamb champion Wether Dam goes to Grace Moore, Tom Green County 4-H. And reserve goes to Kaysen Etheridge, Lubbock Cooper FFA. Congratulations. These 6 weather dams are going to go to the testing area. We will need 1 adult to join each of the exhibitors. 1 adult, parent or advisor, to go with each exhibitor to that area. Class 10 Doe kids, check in, Class 10.
Adams Fab. Established in 2007, they build custom livestock pinning and equipment to fit all your needs. Hanger feeder rods, adjustable slam gate latches, and skirted panels. It all comes standard. Custom pins made by hand and hot dipped galvanized so that you know that they're going to last. Adams Fab is a certified TIPS vendor and can design, fabricate, and install equipment to fit all your needs. Visit AdamsFabLivestock.com to get started today.